Hello, dental speakers and consultants. Vanessa Emerson, founder of Dental Speaker Institute and the dental speaker here with you today with a very special guest. As we can see, Patricia Fripp is here. Yay! This is so exciting for me, Patricia. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Now, those of you who were with us at Jumpstart 2022 just a few months ago were really in for a treat. I know I keep hearing, Patricia, about how much they loved the presentations that you shared with us. And so thank you for sharing your brilliance. And thank you for being here today to spread more love to our community and to share more of your wisdom. And for those of you who are not familiar with Patricia Fripp, and as her friends call her, Fripp, Fripp is a CSP certified speaking professional and CPAE. I don't know what CPAE even means.
Council of Peers Award of Excellence, or we call it the Hall of Fame.
Oh, the Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame through the National Speakers Association as a keynote speaker. She is also an executive speech coach, a sales presentation and online learning expert. And that's what we're going to talk about today. One of the things that I absolutely love about you, Patricia, is that you are the first woman to be elected to the National Speakers Association. What an honor, and what a great example you have given to all of us. Thank you for shining your light so brightly. Now, in Patricia's career, she has presented over 3,500 presentations, maybe even more than when probably more than that, since this bio that I had a while ago, as well as hundreds of virtual presentations. And so that's why I asked Patricia here today. And I know your time is valuable and I appreciate you taking a few minutes with us here, everyone who's listening and you, Patricia. And so if you could share with us, for our speakers and consultants in the audience, what are your top powerful, persuasive presentation tips? I believe you have 5.
Well, let's give 5, Vanessa. So the first is to understand that the creative process is messy. Your presentation will be tidy. Point 1 is, how do you put together your presentation? And I recommend you do not begin with your PowerPoint, even though you might use it. So let's just say that you have a presentation you've delivered before and you want to refresh it. Then you may look at your slides and see what you are keeping in this and what you would remove for your new presentation, then put it on the side. And act as if this were a brand new presentation. Get a whiteboard, a flip chart, a yellow pad. Personally, I like a flip chart because I can have it in the corner of my office and you list ideas, thoughts, stories, quotes, key ideas that might go in your presentation. And the reason I like it on the wall in a flip chart is that as I'm walking by, we get ideas that we can add to it. When people say, how long does it take to put together a speech? Well, you include the days, weeks, or months, you think about it. Then it comes time to put together your presentation. Every presentation is built around a premise, a big idea, a central theme. So for example, I could say, one of my regular every year for a client is a presentation for the American Payroll Association called Selling Yourself and Your Ideas. If I am selling the subject, I could say every payroll professional can sell themselves and their ideas. And I expect the audience to think, oh, I want to do that. That's why I'm here. How do I do it? 1, 2, 3, 4. And you structure the presentation around the big idea. However, I could sell the result. And this is what I'm going to recommend your dental speakers do, is sell the result. So I could say, and what I usually do, is every payroll professional can get promoted. How? You have to learn to sell yourself and your ideas, and this is how you do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if our dental speakers look at the subject, is the result that you will build your dental practice. Is it that you will have more referrals? Is it that you will have more harmony and less turnover in your dental practice? How do you do it? The subject of your program and your key ideas. So that's the process to put together. You need a simple structure, some initial scripting, long before you put together the PowerPoint. And remember, your PowerPoint works for you. You do not work for the PowerPoint. In other words, how can you as simply communicate to reinforce what you're saying? So that's the structure. Well, every presentation, we need to open the presentation with impact. And that, of course, is an important part of your structure once you decide what the flow is. And the purpose of the opening of your presentation, Vanessa, is to arouse interest in the subject. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad you're here. It might be polite, but it's boring, it's predictable. It will not arouse interest in your subject. So why don't you begin with a quote, an interesting statistic, a story, or a question? If I were to ask you, is 2022 the year you increase your dental practice by 20%? Perhaps you'd say yes. Perhaps you'd say no. Most likely you would say, Patricia, I would like it to be, can you tell me how? So a rhetorical question is a great way. So you open to arouse interest in the subject, and from your opening you transition into your premise and the body of your speech. Then, of course, we need to speak as an audience advocate. In other words, look at your message from the point of view of your listener. A perfect example that we have all seen in different circumstances is the president of a company will say, our strategy is sound. This will increase shareholder value. Well, that's fine if you're talking to the shareholders of the board of directors. However, if you're talking to your employees and they're not shareholders, you need to deliver the same message with a different point of view. Our strategy is sound. That means more job security and chance of promotion. Same message, different point of view. And one way that you can communicate that you're speaking as an audience advocate, especially for your dental speakers, is share your own experience. When I was first building my dental practice, or when I first began focusing on dental, how would you say that?
Cosmetic dentistry.
My veneers, yes.
There you go.
But you see, you let them know I used to be in your point of view, in your position. I know what your point of view is. Now, when I was on the dental speaking circuit, as I were, in those days, I was promoting my sessions were on how to promote your dental practice. Now, of course, I was never a dentist, but what I made the comparison with, when I was building my hairstyling business, the principles were the same. And also I could look at their business from my point of view as one of their patient clients. And one way to prove that you have the audience's best interest at heart is with you-focused language. In your experience, how often have you, the next time you walk in to welcome your next patient, you are using you-focused language, and you is a magic word. It's almost like, oh, every time the audience hears you, would it interest you to know, oh, what would interest me? You're re-engaging your audience all the time. Then, of course, fourth is stories. Stories teach and train, inspire and motivate, convince and persuade, and stories simplify the complexity. I know many of your dental speakers have very complex, detailed content to deliver. Well, if you introduce a high level of, imagine you have a patient who has this problem, and you have the conversation and you describe to them what you are going to do. Now, if you were talking to a patient, the procedure you're going through, it's going to be delivered at a high level overview, because I don't understand as a patient all the technical language. But if you began that way, and then now let's look the behind the scenes at what it takes for you to be able to do what you explained, Patricia. Let's dig deeper. Now you're going to go more detailed, and if you have a very complex slide, which you might have when you're going through these heavy duty procedures, make sure that you do it as a build. In other words, one part of the image comes up, you talk about it, and then you build it. It's easier to understand, because with detailed slides, there is a concept of cognitive overload. If you give too much information in a short period of time, or if you have a slide that has so much information on, that is cognitive overload. Your brain, it hurts your head. There's definite proof. Too much information in too short a time or on one slide hurts the listener's head. What's going to happen? They're going to tune out.
Right.
So how you present the information on your slide more is a story. Now, there are other parts of stories. Stories are about people, and we like to hear them speak. So let's imagine you are telling a story about a patient who came into your practice for the procedure you're then going to describe. So rather than say a patient, what I would say is give them a character, a personality, a backstory. So you might say, I walked out to meet Patricia. She was a professional speaker and always concerned that her mouth and teeth looked wonderful in her presentations, especially now that they were virtual. So you before you go through the procedure, you paint a scene. Vanessa, we use words to communicate. However, a lot of how people remember what they heard is with visuals. Right. So we paint the scene of these characters and then get to the point fast. You want to have a character and a backstory and the dialogue, but you don't have to waffle. You need to get to the point fast. Then another way you are going to make your presentation more powerful is with specific language. Now, certainly when you're using technical terms, you will be specific. And I can't help you there. You know the language that you're using. However, specificity builds credibility.
Love that.
And the words that I look at, the most frequently asked question of all my clients, many of them, of course, are in Silicon Valley, is, if it weren't a thing, what would it be? For example, one brilliant engineer said there are two things people love about. And of course, they're talking about their products and offerings. And I said, well, if they weren't things, what would they be? He said, innovative upgrades. I said, there are billions of people in the world. What people love your innovative upgrades? He said, systems administrators. Can you see the quality of the communication?
Much clearer.
If all you do is have one of your live presentations transcribed and highlight every I, and look at, is there a way you could make it you? If you underline or yellow highlight everything, ask yourself, if it weren't a thing, what would it be? Then there's another word. If you are talking about an abundance, a lot, it's not a bunch of ideas or a bunch of people that you met at Jumpstart. It's not a bunch. How many people is it? Is it a handful? Is it dozens? Is it hundreds? Did you walk into an enormous ballroom full of people? Help me see how many people you're talking about. But it's not a ton if you can't weigh it, and it's not a bunch if it's not fruit or vegetables. So let us do a quick review.
Yes.
The 5 best ways to take a good presentation and make it great, or create one from scratch, is the creative process comes first. What's the big idea and a simple structure? And focus on the result. If you just stepped aside from what might be an hour, a 3-hour, an all-day training, and just fill in who is the audience, every dentist, every office dental practice manager, who would it be, what is the result, and then how. 1, 2, 3. That's the background and the backbone of your presentation. Then open with impact to arouse interest. Make sure it is you focused. If you had walked into my dental office, okay, bring the audience in with you focused language. Make your stories and characters come alive, and tell a story before you get into more complex information, so I can see it. Now you're going to give me the steps, and be specific in your language. And they are my 5 best tips.
That's a lot. That's amazing. There's so much in 5. I feel like thank you, Patricia. It feels like we have just experienced practically a masterclass in 15 minutes around powerful, persuasive presentations. And there's so many great ideas in there. And so I've made some notes as we went along, some things, but I'm not going to reach back and chat with you about those. I originally thought I might. I think what I'd rather do is move right on to share with our audience how they can actually participate in the masterclass. And I have participated in Patricia's powerful, it's called Fripp VT. Well, we see it right there on the screen, Fripp Virtual Training VT, and you can find it at frippvt.com. And frippvt.com. And for members of our Dental Speaker Institute, there's actually a special rate, and I'll put that information, and I'll put the address and everything in the comments on here. But what I would really like to point out around the Fripp VT training, I completed it twice. So I was a subscriber for, I think, over a year. For me, I started by listening on my walk. I don't know if you know that. I would log in on my phone as I would take my couple-mile walk in the morning. And so I'd bring my reading glasses with me, and I'd stop and I'd answer the questions, and I'd go. And then I thought, well, I want to be making notes. And so I went back through it again, because there was a ton. I did that for you. There was so much value, seriously, like what we just experienced in 15 minutes. I want to share with all of you out there. There is just, it is packed full of quality tips, and at an amazing rate. And I don't remember exactly what your rate is. I wanted to say it's around 600. I remember that right?
Well, off the street, it would be $600 for your members. It's $450 for a year, or however they want to buy it. They can buy it monthly or for a year.
Fabulous.
It's highly interactive, learn at your own pace, but it is exactly what you need to getting started, finding content, structuring your presentation, opening with impact, great storytelling, specificity, build credibility, and how to adapt each presentation to personalize it to the audience you're speaking to. There's more than that, but that is the core curriculum on how to put together a powerful, persuasive presentation.
And there are 17 hours of recorded content.
Well, if you want to do it all, and but anyway, start with the cold content. That will probably take you 10 hours.
I would say do it. And so what I will do when I post this is put a list of the modules so that our listeners can see what is included. I just I can't promote it enough. As someone who has been through it twice and who has learned so much from you and is super appreciative of the fact that you will come and hang out with us dental speakers, because I know there's so many the places that want you to be there teaching them too. So thank you for
My
your
pleasure.
generous gift of time. Thank you for being with us at our Jumpstart meeting. You're an honorary member forever of our group, and so we hope you'll come back and hang with us again, even if just virtually at a future meeting. And I'd be happy to share this. This was my idea. This was not Patricia's idea. I want you guys to know that. I just said I feel like this is so amazing. I really want to bring this to our group. And so Patricia was generous with her time. And thank you again, Patricia. Is there any final thoughts before we go? Oh, we should make sure they know how to reach you.
Well, they can certainly reach me at fripp.com. Send me an email, pfripp@fripp.com. And all learning requires repetition and reinforcement. Training is not something we did, it is what we do. That's what makes us professional.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for being here. Everyone, until next time, everyone be well. And thank you, Patricia. And we will see you on our next Zoom.